Welcome to the Improvising Life podcast, where we explore how life can be more livable. This is Lori Crawford, your host. So I am getting ready to host playcations for postpartum parents in my area in about 2 weeks. And today I have this thought on my mind, about how awkward it can be to make friends as adults, right? Because suddenly, my theory is that what ends up happening is it becomes like work or a task or a job, like a to-do list, right? When you're a kiddo, you're making friends. It's just oftentimes a natural sort of consequence or reaction of being, right? If you're just around enough peers your age, eventually you'll bump into someone who you're like, oh, I'm okay bumping into this person, right? Oh, we're friends, cool. And it like happens. Or even you can just play without the pressure of having to become a friend. You can just be someone that you're playing with that day, and then you have like the best day ever. And then you may never see them again, but you're like, oh, I remember that day at that one park with the one slide and the one kid with the purple headband. And, that's enough for you. That sort of satiates and fulfills that bucket of sort of like self-expression, of community engagement, all the things, right? And at some point in our growing up and being told to grow up and become an adult, suddenly socializing and engaging with peers becomes a task, it becomes a job, right? Because it's sort of like, in some families it might have been spoken and others it's unspoken, but suddenly like who you surround yourself with matters so much, because there's supposed to be this thought of, well, are they going to benefit you in some way? Are they going to keep you on course, right? Suddenly people are operationalized to have to contribute to your life in certain ways. And so it becomes so much less about, are you having experiences that you enjoy with people that you would choose to be around? And it becomes this whole like interview process, essentially, like, convince me that you're worthwhile, right? And so I'm like, what do you do with that? I don't know. What do we do with that? So my thoughts while I was eating my bagel with herb tofu smear and red onions, my breath is rocking. That's my Wednesday special tradition now. So I was eating that, just driving home now from that. And my thought was, you know what? Here's what we can play with. What if, as adults, when we think about the F word, right, about friends, friendship, meeting other adults, what if instead of leading, with the whole, like, what do you do? What if we're like asking questions like, if you could be doing anything right now, what would you be doing? And yeah, for some people it might be like not having this conversation. Cool. Maybe you actually relate to that and you're like, I actually would also prefer to not have this conversation. Or you're like, cool, now I know that you're not my person. Wonderful. Like, we can just be in this moment or like decide to leave it. What if we're asking questions like, if you could play in any way, what would you want to play? Or like, what items bring you the most joy or coziness? Like, if you had to pick one or two shows or movies or books or soundtracks that had to, be a part of your life every day, what would they be? Right? Really like leading with the interests, the things that actually help us feel the most alive, the things that actually bring out our youthfulness, the things that feel the less adulting. Right? Because I'm just curious on whether our adult friendships have a different capacity for intimacy and like relevancy and space in our life if we're not, like, we don't have to act like adulting doesn't exist, right? Because that's like the heaviest weight on most of our backs. But I'm curious on whether engaging with peers and socializing, like, there can be more of the sense of camaraderie and upliftment when it's with people who not just have the same interests, but would also be able to have the capacity of playing in that way, right? So that it cuts down on the sort of like meet and greet time where you're just like, oh shit, you like Parks and Rec? I like Parks and Rec. Like, let's body double. Next week, we'll pick a day, we'll watch Parks and Rec together, or we'll talk about her favorite episode while, like, I'll do the dishes, you do your laundry, like, whatever those things are, and really use those shared interests, the things that help us feel the most energized, as the ways that we are then navigating the adulting things that are like what makes it so hard to socialize, right? So it's like, yes, it's so hard to have time to socialize because of like the 86 things I'm expected to do. And also, let's have this play date while we're doing those things, right? And this is something I did a lot during the pandemic when I was first starting. Is, I had Funnin with friends. That's a cute little saying my niece came up with. She was like, "Oh, I'm Funnin with my friends," and so I made like a Funnin with friends bingo spreadsheet, or not a spreadsheet, like a bingo board. See how adulty came in? A spreadsheet. That was a bingo board. And so my best friend Beth and I, we would fill it out. And for a few weeks, we would just like call and be like, okay, which one's the next one on the bingo card? And then we would do that activity. And it was just like incredible, right? And so that's what's on my mind right now. I'm going to try to keep these episodes to like a digestible little morsel. But if you resonate with any of this or you try it out, let me know. I cannot wait. I also need to remember, as I'm looking in the rearview mirror of my husband's Jeep, bring in the trash can. So, this is your reminder cues to like acknowledge the things that, yes, you do need to do, and also like, how can you jazzercise your way through them? So as always, have a razzle dazzle day, and if that's not accessible, put an F on front and have a frazzle dazzle day. See ya.